life been a derelict. All my friends, they wish me dead. They wish me dead. Every day is filled with dread. Filled with dread. All my life been a derelict. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. My life been a derelict, never change, yeah, I swear to it. And of all the times I've been down and out, this time was different, I welcomed it. Every day that I fail to quit, I wind up here in the state I'm in. The heavy weight, cause it's bound to break, I need a break, the skin I'm in. Tip of my tongue tastes like battery acid. Try to push forward, I cannot push past it. Feel the blood on my tongue, it tastes metallic. Another day passes, I don't break the habit. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. I'm sick in my head, I'm sick in my head. Drive me up. I'm wishing for death, I'm wishing for death. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. I've got the diamond clue, swallowing me, falling into everything that I do. Everything I kiss to and feel so typical. There's been plenty of moments that I fell in hard times. More often than not, getting faded was my lifeline. I realized that I've always struggled with change, but sometimes you gotta rearrange before you go insane. I've been doing my best to stay true to myself, put my next foot forward and smoking dope for my health. I never give up the music till I'm rolling in wealth. Some days I swear this basement's my own personal hell. Well, I love the sound of the city. Goddamn, I love the sound of the city. Yeah, yeah. I'm wide awake when you're with me. I feel better when you got my back, yeah. Red eyes, I'm sky high. I think this might be the best night that I've ever had, that I've ever spent with you. I confess I'm obsessed with the sex. Heart palpitations every time that she texts. I admit that we ain't always been the best for each other, but what is love without the little test? Girl, you know you're my sneaky link. When I'm with you, my ego shrink. I'm just craving time for us alone. I think about you every time I'm home smoking dope. I love the sound of the city. Goddamn, I love the sound of the city. Yeah, yeah. I'm wide awake when you're with me. I feel better when you got my back, yeah. Red eyes, I'm sky high. I think this might be the best night that I've ever had, spent with you.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Glad you made it out. Today I have a special guest, someone that I have recently met. I invited him on. He decided to come on. Really thankful that he had made some time to come on. So, Castillo Trading, if you want to introduce yourself, go for it.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me, Roman. Yeah, Castillo Trading here. You know, I have that's pretty much a handle on everything. Castillo Trading on Telegram, on X.com or Twitter.com, whatever you call it these days. But yeah, man, happy to be here. So appreciate the invite.
Dude, anytime. And we were talking kind of briefly just about like general market sentiment, where are we at? I know the last couple weeks we've kind of, some of our analysis has kind of blended together, and we've talked about this kind of 30,000, 38, 32,000 zone. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to continue that conversation. There's a lot of people in here that for the last couple weeks, that's all I've been preaching. So they're aware of it, but I'm sure they'd like to, another great trader to kind of give them, that insight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first when it comes to the way that I trade, it's purely technicals. I think like recently there's been a lot of fundamental kind of coming in with the ETF and a lot of stuff going on with GBT, Barry Silbert, all that sort of stuff. But for me, I'm just like based off pure technicals, and the way that I analyze things is just very basic. I look for basic support and resistance, and I just remember one of my mentors back in the day when I first started trading stock market penny stocks back in like 2016. He was telling me, if you can identify support and resistance, that's when you can identify when to buy, when to sell, when to take profit, when to, do that, all that sort of stuff. So my analysis is very basic, I like to say, but it's like the KISS, the KISS, keep it simple, stupid. But I use just, just various ways to just find support and resistance. That's it. Find different liquidity grabs at support levels. And, I use a little bit of volume profile, current range trading, channel trends trading, just, just very, very basic analysis. And I think that that's really one of the keys to it. I think a lot of people can overcomplicate things with, all these indicators and divergences and, EMAs, SMAs, and all this sort of stuff kind of blending in. But I think that, if you can identify ways to just find support and resistance, you can be all right. And there's a lot of ways to do it, right? A good way is like super trend. Super trend's a really good way to just find some support levels. Range trading is a really good way to find some support and resistance levels, that sort of thing. But again, it's just kind of keeping things simple and just knowing when to react, having game plans, having patience for those game plans. And then, we were talking about that 38 to kind of like 32 zone. You got to have a game plan for when price starts to dig into those areas, so you know what to do instead of like freaking out, jumping the gun, selling too early, or whatever, panic selling, as they say. But yeah, I just think it's good to just have good and easy areas that you can identify yourself to when to buy and when to sell, and that's what support and resistance is.
Absolutely, and I'm with you there too. I like to keep my trading simple. I'm more of like a price action, support and resistance, and I look for a lot of patterns. And for a lot of people, they think it sounds stupid. Like they're like, "Oh, you look for W's on the chart?" Like, yeah, they work. For some reason, they work, and they work really well. They're very common, and they give you a place of invalidation because a lot of the time, and not all the time, but sometimes you might not land perfectly on that support level that you have, and usually that, maybe that double bottom is layered out right above, but it's there, and it's a place where you can have, you can set risk management. My big thing is risk management. Like, I don't risk more than probably 2% on a trade. Recently, it's been much less than that. I've been risking about 0.5% to 1%, just because we're in an area that's not very confident. I trade the daily and the 4 hour. I'm not much of a day trader. I don't really do a lot of range trading. It's more of like swing trading. I'm trying to catch the larger swing, averaging into positions, playing over time, whether that be a couple days or a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely.
keeping it as simple as possible. I mean, I definitely do use a little bit of like RSI, MACD, but I think some of that, and I've questioned myself if I want to remove it from my charts, and I think I will at some point, just for Twitter's sake. I keep it there because it looks a little flashier. People like
Yeah.
to look at that stuff. But unfortunately for me, and a lot of you guys know, this is what my chart looks like 99% of the time. It is just price, these lines, and volume. And that's really all I need to make 90% of the trades that I'm making. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, really, you were kind of talking about, there's certain, areas of interest can get like front run or back run or something. They won't hit exactly, but the idea is there. And I think that's, very key for traders to understand is things don't have to work out perfectly for you to be a successful trader. Like you don't have to have 100% hit rate for you to be a successful trader. I've met plenty of traders in the stock market who are at like 60, 65% hit rates, but are multimillionaires just because they know how to manage that risk to the downside. They know how to cut losses quickly. They know how to let winners run, maximize ROI on those trades. So I think a lot of people can, especially on Twitter, a lot of people kind of dial it down to the best traders being the ones that have the highest percent hit rate and all this sort of stuff. But for me, it's kind of almost the opposite. Like you're going to lose trades. There's times that you're going to take 2 to 3 losses trying to capture a long or a short. But it's the matter of keeping those losses small, and then when you do hit that big winner, really let that profit maximize that ROI so that you
yeah,
can kind of diminish all of those losses and then make gains along the way. So I'll take 2 or 3 losing trades to catch that big winner of a trade, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
that's more or less what I do. I don't mind losing. Like I said, the risk management's key, and that's, in my opinion, that's the one thing that people miss out on. Because you'll tell someone, like my hit rate's probably around 50%. Yeah, maybe it's a little higher sometimes, and maybe it's a little lower. But when I was actually explaining this to someone, they're like, "Well, how do you make money if you're only winning 50% of the time?" I said, "It has to deal with risk management. If I'm losing 1% every time I lose, when I'm making 10 to 15% every time I win, over the long haul, I'm much more profitable. Even if I lose 6 trades in a row, which generally that hasn't happened to me in years. But I've had trades where I lose 2 or 3, maybe 4 in a row. That's 4% of the trading portfolio. But then I'll hit that.
Yeah.
I'll hit one trade and make 20, 30, 40%. So
Yeah.
it goes
Absolutely.
miles, and trading has always been, at least for me, been a marathon and certainly not a sprint. So
Oh, for sure.
but
Sure,
yeah,
for sure.
just real quick, if you guys have any questions at all, because I see the live feed first, I'll relay those questions to him, and I'm just sharing my screen and just kind of basing off that. We were just pretty much going to talk about a lot of ETF stuff, a lot where price is going to land, just like crypto as a whole. We were talking earlier. Castillo's he's a big believer in crypto, like I am. Thinks it'll, it's going to change. It's going to change a lot. It's going to change essentially, in a very broad way to put it. It will change the world. It's already changing the world. We're seeing AI being implemented in the medical field, which is groundbreaking, at least to me. So I know we talked about the ETF, and I've definitely given my fair share of opinions for a lot of the people watching. But what is your view on the ETF, like both short and long term?
Yeah, I think the ETF. It's very easy to say in hindsight that it was a classic buy the rumor, sell the news, situation. Because I mean, that's exactly what has been playing out. Once the ETF got approved, there was a hype candle to like 49K or whatever, and then just pretty much straight downside from there. But that downside wasn't like unnoticeable. Like you could kind of see that BTC and a lot of some of the altcoins were just overextended. I mean, it pulled over 100, what was it, like 120% move throughout the year of 2023. So, for me, it's like the downside obviously sucks based off the ETF announcement. I was not one that was shorting heavily into the ETF announcement by any means, but I was also accepting of lower to, get a better discount on some of those BTC longs. Because, when it comes down to fundamentals, I'm not a big fundamental guy. Like we kind of talked about that earlier, when there's a lot of stuff that comes into play with, Barry Silbert and, all this stuff going on with GBT and the FTX bankruptcy, going to zero now or whatever the headlines are. I'm not really one to kind of harp on that kind of stuff. For me, I have levels all the way down to, I think we were talking about this earlier, to like 34, 36K. A big area of interest for me right now is that 39 to 38K to see how those levels react. And it's just a matter of kind of being prepared for both scenarios, long and short. And I know, like, sometimes you can get, like, if you prepare for long and you prepare for if you prepare for downside or you prepare for upside, some people may think that's like trolling or whatever, because it's kind of like going in both directions, and then you could claim victory on whichever one it does go. But really, you do have to be prepared for both the long scenario and the short scenario for every impulse move up and down. You got to know where certain levels are for buying. And for me, there has been certain levels to the downside, regardless of ETF, that I've been willing to, to buy into. Like we were talking about earlier, between that 38 and 32 zone, I think that is a great discount on longs heading into the future, heading into the halving. There's so much to happen within crypto, like we were talking about, within the rest of the world, within the banking system, with everything kind of going on to AI and all this sort of stuff. I just think that cryptocurrency and blockchain are really here to stay and kind of change the future. So, and the whole ETF announcement, the rejection of the ETF, it doesn't really matter to me, because I am a true crypto believer for the 5-6 years to come. I mean, I've always said that crypto is like, even when I got into this in like 2017, 2018, as like a 10 to 15 year plan. Like, it's not going to be in your face right away. I think that it got really hot when obviously BTC was going to that $70,000 target. What was that year? I think it was a 2021.
Yeah, 21.
But just overall, I try to just ignore a lot of the headlines and stuff, because I also think right now a lot of people are too invested into what is happening with the ETF. And the reality is, man, in years to come, it's not going to fucking matter. Like, there's going to be ETFs that come out for Ripple, that come out for Ethereum, that come out for Sol. Like, there's going to be so many more headlines like this one. I even tweeted a long time ago. I actually talked to Scott Milker in Singapore about this too, because he was asking me what I thought about the ETF. And I mean, if you've been in the industry long enough, you've known that ETF headlines have been coming out since like 2018.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's been seeing an ETF approval, an ETF denial. The difference between this one is that it was, approved, but it still didn't really change the reaction of what has happened, because there's been denials in the past where price tanked. ETF got approved and price tanked. So to me, it just doesn't really mean that much to be harping on a headline like that, because like we talked about, in a couple years, it's going to be kind of is what it is. I think that the biggest thing that came from the ETF approval was the legitimacy of cryptocurrency, right? So that's why I like altcoins a little bit now. That's why I like Ethereum, is because once BTC gets approved, then it basically starts to do like a domino effect for all these other coins to be legitimized into traditional markets, which, again, it might not be the best thing to get Wall Street approved, but it's what's necessary for the industry to thrive.
Yeah, especially we talk about like regulation, and there's a lot of, I know you and I have had some issues with exchanges in the past, and essentially you're opening the door for regulation. The SEC is going to start defining what the rules are, and it will allow for not only more money to flow in. If you're, I don't know your entire, background. I know you've been trading for a while, but my background comes from professional finance. I used to be a trader in a hedge fund, and these large firms don't want to put all of their money into something when it could go to zero the next day. I mean, you look at some of these, and I'll just use the term, because that's the best term to use it, these shit coins. Like, you have these shit coins that'll go up a ton, and then the next day they'll just be zero. And no one wants to, and that's the fear. Now, will that happen to Bitcoin or Ethereum? Like, probably not. Like, the odds of that happening are very, very low. But it's a threat, and no one wants to put their money in something that isn't going to work for them. So now that we have this ETF, in my opinion, this will probably be the last cycle of wild west for at least Bitcoin and Ethereum. After that, it'll probably be more stabilized. These larger fluctuations will get smaller over time. But it allows for anyone that's bought in the past. Now you have more money coming in. Now you have these hedge funds coming in. Now you have hedge funds that can open crypto trading for investors, like, legally, and they can be protected, right? So I don't know. For me, the ETF in the long run is an incredibly bullish feat for not only Bitcoin, but like you said, the domino effect as well. But in the short term, to me, it was a sell the news event. It's the classic, this drug is coming out on, in a couple weeks, in the day that the drug's announced that it came out, the stock tanks. I used to trade biotech stocks, so the FDA calendar was huge. So, a lot of people thought, oh, we're just going to keep going up forever, and that's not always true. I know a lot of you are asking what this is on my chart. So this is one of the pictures I posted on Twitter, I believe a couple weeks ago, and it's very basic, nothing too complicated to understand. But what I wanted to point out is every time we have these large fluctuations, we have corrections, and corrections are normal, and not only in an uptrend but in a downtrend. And when you're seeing 100% swing move to the upside, and especially for a news-based event, because this whole pump from 25K was news-based for the ETF. When you see that happen, it's likely we're going to get a correction. What that leads to my kind of next point is, both of us, and I believe some others, some other very solid traders. Income Sharks is one of them. I keep seeing his charts. We're all on the same page that this is likely going to sell into the 30s. Everyone's going to get bearish. Everyone's going to call for your 12K targets. Crypto Savvy is going to get popular again. I don't know if you know who Crypto Savvy is. The guy is
no, I do.
He's something else. But
right.
I mean, it's the classic cycle of everyone keeps buying green and selling red. And I hope, and my goal of the next couple weeks as this happens, and I'm sure your goal is the same, is to get people to kind of see that even if we come down, we're still on an overall uptrend. We're still looking just fine.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's true too, because you mentioned Income Sharks, and I think that he kind of really has nailed the overall analysis of 2023 and into 2024. I think sometimes he gets a lot of heat on Twitter because he sold too early or whatever. But I mean, you got to think, man. You had how many days to buy before the ETF? We were in 2023. We had months. I think I put out a chart that was like we had 300 and something days to buy Bitcoin before the ETF approval, and it was like 2 days before the approval. So it's like, why would you on earth wait 2 days before the approval happens when you had a year plus to kind of dollar cost average and kind of take your entries? So we were kind of digging into that area that was a little bit of it just was unappealing. 50K, I think was, I started seeing a lot of big accounts talk about it, right? I think for me, I had been watching for a 48 to 50K touch from all the way back in I think it was like April of 2023, right? When price was around like that 27,000. And it's like, I started to see so many people talking about the 50K, it's going to hit 50K this, 50K that. And so it made sense to get a rejection right before. And by no means did I say I traded this perfectly, right? Because I didn't get short at that, 49, 48K area. I haven't really even shorted BTC or Ethereum that much this year or even previously.
Neither have I. In 2023,
yeah,
I think I shorted like twice that were successful.
Exactly. And so that was the thing. We talked about this too. It just like how hard it actually was to kind of capitalize on that area. I think for me, once we got that rejection of that 48, 49, I would have liked a retest of 45K to kind of short into heavy, but we didn't get it, right? I used NPOC levels, which is like naked points of control, which comes from like volume profile. And we had an NPOC print at 45,969. And that was really the area for me that I've been telling, a lot of my traders, like, hey, this is the area that I'm really willing to short. And then, it just didn't happen. And at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, man. Like, you're not going to win every single trade. You're not going to be able to even trade every single setup that you're watching. As long as you can protect capital, I think that's like the biggest thing is there's really a couple of months out of the year that are like stupid easy mode where you can just buy dips and it just kind of goes up. And the rest is kind of just like managing your funds, right? Managing where you put capital, you could do some staking, Ethereum staking or whatever. I'm not sure what you and your guys are into, but there's multiple ways that you can still earn revenue in a bear market. And sometimes people like, I think the dollar cost averaging in a bear market has been one of the best strategies to do within crypto since I've been involved, right? If everybody leaves during the bear market, nobody wants to be involved, nobody wants to touch crypto, but if you can just stick around and be buying a little bit of Ethereum, buying a little bit of Bitcoin throughout like a year span or like, you know, a couple year span, like that's when you're going to make life-changing money, is that next cycle that hits and, you know, you're really well positioned because, you know, the thing that really helped me out was the COVID crash. You know, I think for me, that's where I made a
Oh
majority
yeah.
of my money within trading crypto was I was at, and again, this is just lucky timing, right? I was at my computer, I was looking at the charts, I had excess capital sitting on the sideline, I wasn't overexposed, and everything just tanked based on the headlines. So at that point, I just bought a shit ton of everything, like whatever I could click on Coinbase, whatever was working, like, you know, so, and that's where some of my best trades came from, was from Filecoin last cycle and Polygon Matic. So,
Wow.
you know, making those two trades in a time when everybody was so shit scared of everything to touch anything. Again, it was just kind of lucky timing for me to capitalize on those two trades. And it really could have been anything, right? There were so many things that flew in 2020, 2021 that, you know, you just had to be at the right place at the right time to kind of capitalize on the opportunity.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think a lot of people overlook the DCAing strategy. I know a lot of the people that excuse me. A lot of the people that have been following me for a while, they know I called for DCAs down in that 17K area and really DCA'd all the way down to 15 and then all the way back up to about 24, 25. So I capitalized, I believe that's, how many days is that? It's about 300 days-ish. I was DCAing and I was buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, Link, Matic. I was buying ICP, Ajax. You know, I was buying a Fed. I was buying a bunch of stuff. A lot of it was AI too. I was buying a lot of AI. Figured AI was gonna. I mean, AI is likely going to be the leader in the next either next run or just like overall putting gains in because we're seeing just a huge wave of AI. I'm hoping. I have a pretty large bag of Tau. I'm hoping that or Bit Sensor. I hope that does pretty well. But yeah, even kind of back on the 38 to 32K, I think a lot of, you know, just a lot of people that, and a lot of people aren't, you know, I'm not saying that I'm the best trader ever, but I can see when a setup is going to happen. Like I put time in, this is my job, this is what I do all the time. A lot of newer traders or people that are trying to invest, if you're looking at an investment standpoint, like, and by the way, just so that a lot of anyone that's new here, the most money, like the best gains you're going to make are DCAing. 100%. You are never going to outtrade the market. It is impossible. It is impossible to outtrade the market. The market's going to do and act irrational while you try and act rational. And on top of that, if this isn't your job, you know, if you're just investing money, and if you're a new trader, this is your chance to buy, put it on a ledger and put it in a safe or bury it in your backyard and don't touch it or think about it until Bitcoin's making new all-time highs and all of those news articles come out and say, hey, you know, all of this crazy stuff is happening. And when that happens, unbury it, plug it in your computer and start selling stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's great advice. You know, I think that's, you know, that's where some of my biggest gains have come from dollar cost averaging into spot bags. You know, like, I mean, it really has, you know, obviously I've made some good money trading with derivatives and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's not going to outweigh, you know, those two trades that I made with Phil and Matic back in, you know, last cycle where they just absolutely took off for, you know, 250% plus or whatever it was. But again, you have to have conviction because I think there's, you know, it's tough for some people, especially newer people. And that's why I think it's good to kind of put it on a ledger and put it away, because if you're looking at it and let's just say you're up 5%, right, and you sell and then it keeps going, like that's when it can kind of get tough for people that don't really know what they're doing, is, you know, because they take the quick money, they take like the few $1,000s or 5 or 6, 10,000, whatever it is, but then it keeps going, right? So that's why I do think it's important to kind of like dollar cost average in and then also dollar cost average out. Like you have to be taking partial profits out. You can't do all in at once, all in out. Like it, you know, there's definitely ways that you can use TA to your advantage to be like, okay, I'm going to sell 20% of my position here. Okay, then I'm going to sell another 20 here. Okay, then I have 60% left and I'm going to hold this 60% for another X amount of months to see if we break all-time highs or whatever it is. But if you can like lock in those initial profits, but still kind of dollar cost average out of the trade, it's just as important as dollar cost averaging in, because that's really the only way you're going to be able to maximize ROI within those trades, you know? So I think a lot of people, especially traders in derivatives, they go all in and all out with like one trade, right? If they have a $5,000 account, they'll put all $5,000 in for one trade, and then all five, and it's just you're just going to bleed your account of 1,000 cuts doing, trying to
Yeah.
do that, because again, you're trying to outsmart the market, and you're not going to, you may
You're
get
not.
lucky here and there, but the majority is it's not going to end well for you.
Yeah, not even to mention the tax implications. If you just DCA, and now my I have a trading account and I have a spot bag, right? My spot bag is my long term, like I'm trying to make 20x on it. Whether that happens or it
Yeah.
doesn't, that's up for a different debate. But part of the reason why I have a longer term holding, and again, it's about, it's about $100,000. So if that does a 10x, that's $1 million. And this is where the
Absolutely.
like that is more money. Now, my trading account's a lot larger now, but I will make more gains and probably pay less in taxes off that, which will ultimately make me more money in the long
Yeah.
run
Yeah.
than just
Yeah.
trying to trade every day. Because on some of these trades, like if I make six figures on a trade, I'm paying 40% taxes, right? If I long term invest, and let's say, and it's easy. You buy, you put it on a ledger, you don't look at it, right? You buy when
Hmm.
everyone's panicking, and you don't look at it. And when you go to sell that, you're paying, and I'm a believer, guys, pay your taxes. Like if you're an American, pay your taxes. Going to jail is not worth it.
Absolutely.
I know in crypto there's
Absolutely.
like I'm not going to pay my taxes like cuz I'm in crypto. Like you're a dumbass. Like you're going to fuck yourself so hard. Like the government at some point is going to notice you. Like
For sure.
you're going to have a portfolio and they're going to know about it, whether you think they do or not. But anyways,
Yeah. Well, just on the tax thing really fast.
oh
I get
yeah,
a lot.
sure.
I get that question all the time. Like, well, what do you do taxes? How do you do this? It's like, if it's a lot of money, just hire somebody.
Yeah,
Like
just hire
it
someone.
hire somebody that knows what they're doing. If it's too complicated for you, if you think you're not doing it right, just hire someone that can take care of it for you, because then you have no stress. And
Yeah.
again, it might be a little more pricey or whatever, but just that little bit of money is way more worth it to, make sure that you're doing everything correctly. And so yeah, like just hire an accountant if you're really concerned about anything.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It removes your bias because there are things
For
that
sure.
you might think like, oh, I don't need to pay tax on this, or I'll pay less than this, and then you're just hurting yourself in the long run. And again, going to jail and having the IRS up your ass, like having the IRS up your ass sucks. But now you're on a radar, and now they know everything about you, and it's not even necessarily about the money and the taxes. If you do anything else, they're gonna try and get you for that too. You got unregistered
Yeah.
firearms, they're coming after you. Like,
Yep.
so just
Absolutely.
my little 2 cents there. But
No, I love that, man. I love that.
yeah, but I guess I do have another question. This is something we didn't talk about earlier. And I kind of brought it up briefly, but I was like, hey, we got to start the stream. So equities, Nasdaq, SPX, Dow Jones, all above all time highs. What do you think? What do you think about all that? Do you think we're going? Because the argument is, we're entering some kind of recession. We're going, although we've made all time highs, it's going to turn into that like 1970s where we made all time highs for like a couple weeks and then we're going back down to support. What is your take on all of that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I mean, I follow equities. I have, stocks that I, trade here and there. It's not like a majority of where my focus is, but, obviously I have some exposure to, some of the big boys over the years, and like, the whole COVID crash happened, and, I did buy a lot of stocks. Boeing was one that really plays a role in my mind that I bought during that crash. And, I just think that personally, like, when did we start seeing all of those headlines that a recession and all that stuff was going to happen, and that a global crash was going to happen, and the world wars were going to crash the entire market and all this stuff? It happened at the lows,
Yeah, no, yeah,
and so that it's so hard for me to really think about anything as far as, equities, because I just think like equities is such a way for the elites and the higher ups to just kind of manipulate everybody else. Like
yeah,
it's just proven to be, something that is just so polar opposite than what the headlines give to you. Like I even have like family members that were texting me saying that they were pulling everything out when, all the World War stuff was happening in, 2022 and, the September, I think it was like September 2022. If I'm not mistaken, where I just started to see all the global recession headlines.
Yep.
And it's like, that was literally the pico bottom, dude.
Yep.
And so it's just disgusting what these mainstream media feed people to basically line their own pockets in a way that everybody might not understand. But when everybody's pulling their cash out and they're scared, that's when you need to be putting it in. And so the recession was like one. I think it just continues to go higher. I mean, I don't really know. I don't focus on it too much, but I think that it's a good thing to keep watch just for crypto. But at the same time, crypto hasn't really been correlated with it for the past 12 months. There's been moments where it has been correlated, but it's hard to see equities breaking all-time highs and crypto still 650 to 60% off of all-time highs.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely tough to see, but I don't really know. I don't really have a stance on it. I
I
just
guess.
think that as long as the people are in office, right? I look at it like this. There's a lot of old people in office right now, and all their 401ks and all their money is tied up in equities and in traditional finance. So do you really think that they're going to let that thing go to zero?
I
Like,
never even
hell
thought
no.
about it like that.
Hell
That's the
no. They're
one
gonna
thing I haven't thought about.
Dude, they're gonna make sure that fucking thing pumps until they're out of office so that they can retire cushy as possible. So that's
Yeah.
always been my thought process with it is all these guys in office, they're not gonna let the stock market tank. Like they're gonna make it like have corrections, of course, just because it naturally does, but they're gonna keep it going. And it's True Crypto 26, Mr. Anderson, he's a really big mentor of mine, and he kind of was the one that kind of got me into that think that thought process where it's like America's gonna kick the can down the road whichever way that they can to keep it moving up. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of been my stance on it.
Yeah. So, and I guess like I fully agree with that. And there's a bunch of different reasons why. I won't get it too heavily into them. But I guess my stance is more like, so because we have that, like, are we going into recess? Like, are we actually continuing? Because although crypto is not following the S&P 500 to the nth degree, if
Mm.
essentially you're saying like if the economy is doing well, which the stock market isn't a perfect representation of the economy. However, if the stock market continues to rise, everything else is likely going to rise with it. You have risk, which is crypto. So I don't know. Kind of wanted to see your thought process, but it seems like you kind of agree because we're gonna kick the can
Yeah.
down the road as long as
Yeah,
we can until we can't.
exactly. And I just think, like, even if some sort of stimulus ever happens in the future again to where they inject
Oh,
capital out
jeez.
to everybody, like, I think even to that extent, they could potentially do that again at some point. And again, that's, a lot of people ended up putting that stimulus money back into the stock market, which I think that's kind of what the government wanted in the first place. Not to like a certain degree, everybody putting it back in, but I think like injecting that type of capital into the world obviously is going to lead to some people buying, right? Not
Yeah.
everybody, but shit, even if you have 50% of people putting half of that stimulus into the stock market, it's still getting put back into the markets for them to recirculate in whatever manner that they want. But yeah, man, I just think that it seems like if you just buy calls, equity calls, like you really can't go wrong now as it's breaking all-time highs. I think like it could the thing that I think could happen is it could continue to rise to maybe, I'm just looking at the S&P right now to like 5200, right? If it does rise to 5200, I think that, that does trigger a lot for crypto just in general, like you were talking about, like risk on. I think that the stock market's got to go higher, Bitcoin will go higher, and like all risk on assets will essentially just continue to go higher. Now, I don't know when it's going to happen. It could happen sometime in Q2, maybe into Q3 before the halving. Who really knows? But I just think that yeah, kick the can down the road is kind of the U.S.'s mantra on the stock market.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. And part of me, now that you're saying that, we're looking at a bunch of rate reductions in of interest rates. I believe the market's priced in 6 or 7 of them. There'll probably be about 5 that happen total. And I don't know how familiar you are with this, but the way our economy grows is with borrowed money, right? Businesses borrow
Yep.
money from banks. Right now, they're not borrowing as much money because it's way more expensive to borrow money. Well, when those rates get reduced, again, economic
Mhm.
stimulation. So now it seems like we have a very similar view. Yours is more like, or it seems like it's, there's all these people and they're not going to let it crash because it'll hurt them, right? It kind of
Yeah,
screws them and they don't want to screw themselves over. And my view is kind of
exactly.
a little bit more fundamental where I'm looking at a possible tech boom, the largest wealth transfer of all time. A lot of these wealthier people have the most excess capital they've ever had. There's $6 trillion of sideline capital. So, I've got a bunch of reasons. I won't go through them all, but it seems like we have
Yeah,
a
no.
pretty similar view.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I do think like, I do think that crypto, and I don't know if it's crypto in general. I don't know if it's Bitcoin. I don't know, maybe it's some other currency that's created in the next couple of years or whatever, but I do think that it is like the next generational wealth transfer is from, that into digital. I also had a mentor of mine talk to me, and I met him in LA one time, and we were having dinner, and he was like, there's normally there's two big wealth, transfers of wealth. There's two of them within everybody's lifetime. And I don't know how young you were or how old you are, but obviously the first one was the .com boom.
Yeah.
Like that transfer of wealth happened pretty substantially quick, although, I wasn't able to capitalize. I was in elementary school,
Yeah, I was in
whatever.
elementary school as well. So,
Yeah. So, but I know like my father like made a lot of money on that, right?
yeah.
And my wife's dad made a lot of money on .com. Like things were just flying. And again, things are a little bit different from back then to now with, having the ability to trade at your computer with one click instead of having to call your broker and say buy
Mhm.
this, sell that. There's definitely different dynamics, but I think the principle is the same. And it's just going into something that's digital. Like fiat cash is just obviously dying. There's places that won't even accept it anymore. And whether, like I said, it's something that the government creates, like the CB, what is it, the central digital currency that they have coming out, or what they're talking about, whatever. I don't know if it's going to be that or if it's going to be something else, or even if it could be Bitcoin. Who knows? Like nobody actually fucking knows the future. So I think like having an open mind and an open stance to all that is very key as well, because if you kind of just get into that mindset of, oh, this is how it has to be, because most people want the stock market to crash and crypto to fly, but that doesn't really happen. Like you essentially need both to kind of go up, just like both of them went up after the COVID crash. Like that is a black swan event, but it fundamentally is what should happen between risk on assets, between the stock market and crypto and so on.
Yeah. No, 100%. So, I guess kind of finalizing some thoughts. I don't want to keep you here all day. I know you're
Oh, no
busy
worries, man. No
yourself.
worries.
So my
Great combo,
last,
man. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
dude. No, I appreciate you coming on. I know, other like really prior to today, we've had not a lot of conversation. I feel like this has been pretty productive, and it's definitely given me some good ideas. And I'm really happy to hear that there are other traders at least trading simply. I think trading simply is the best way, or at least some of the better traders I see. Their chart is mostly just lines, boxes, and price. There's not a lot of, like
Yeah.
I've always said,
Yeah.
when your chart looks like a rainbow, it's, I don't know, those people I don't really trust as a trader. Like if your chart's got
Absolutely.
all this crap on it, you're just not seeing what's in front of you. So
I completely agree.
my last point, and I've got a lot of questions asking, or I've had some questions asking, and questions this morning. Do you think there will be some type of, I guess, not like alt season in the regards of we're in a bull market and all that liquidity is going from Bitcoin to alts, but do you think, because I've done some analysis on Bitcoin dominance, I've looked at Ethereum to Bitcoin, we're kind of in that, you've been in crypto a while, you know that the money goes from Bitcoin to Ethereum to alts, major caps and micro caps. Do you think that we're going to have some kind of smaller alt session in the midst of this somewhat correction? So we're ultimately correcting to 32,000, right? Or
Yeah.
let's say we do correct to 32,000. I know it hasn't happened yet. I don't want to say it's going to happen, but let's say hypothetically it does. Do you think that there is a period where Ethereum, Matic, Link, whatever you want to, alt wise, do you think that there's any sort of alt session? Are you seeing that like in any of the data you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's kind of hard. Like I had a couple of people ask me this question today on my stream, and it's hard to really say. I personally believe yes, but the thing about it is I just think Bitcoin needs to just chill the fuck out. Like I just think that it needs to go sideways, not overextend into that 60, $50,000 range, because then it kind of takes the party away. If we correct down to 32, which, correct me if I'm wrong,
That's pretty deep. It's like
it's
almost
pretty it's pretty
40%.
it's pretty deep, but if
It's
you
like
look at some of the
35.
altcoin corrections, they're not terrible, right? Like,
Yeah.
I personally, looking at what BTC and Ethereum have done, I would think that altcoins are down 50%. And they're just not. Some of them are definitely down in the 30s and, high 20s and that sort of stuff for some of the good ones. But at the end of the day, man, I definitely think that Bitcoin just has got to chill, and maybe it kind of just ranges between 36 and 45. I don't know, just to kind of like sideways chop, just to let more money come back in. Because if it just keeps going down, then I think it does kind of take away that narrative of like a
Yeah.
mini alt season happening. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I have a ton of spot altcoins right now that I'm holding that, I don't plan on selling anytime soon. So I definitely think some altcoin relief is in play, but again, I don't really want to put like a time frame on it, because it could happen in Q3. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah. Yeah.
things are just stagnant for a little bit, or it can happen the end of Q2, or maybe even to Q4. Like, I'm not sure how that plays out, because I think that Bitcoin, with now the ETF kind of being involved, does change the dynamics a little bit, but it also legitimizes all these altcoins, or per se shit coins, right? I think that
Yeah.
the ETF legitimizes all of them. Whether you want to believe it or not, if it's trading in the top 100 of the cryptocurrency market, the Bitcoin ETF legitimizes them. And so I think absolutely there will be some sort of altcoin run up that happens. When does it happen? I'm not sure. I'm putting it on the timeline of closer, maybe a little bit before the halving ish. Like, we see some sort of run up into the halving narrative, and then we see like a drop off into the sell the news type of headline, which has kind of happened in the halving in the past, and then we
Yeah.
just kind of skyrocket from there.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of like what I'm thinking. Again, I don't know like the exact dates of all this, but that's just like a a general idea of what I'm watching for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I'm on the same page. I hope we see kind of Bitcoin stabilize, because that's where you have your alts, catch some liquidity, and some of them make those nice little moves. Like, especially like some of the data I'm looking at, like with Ethereum, the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. I like the way the weekly looks. I think the weekly is it's just telling me to look for that Ethereum trade. Unfortunately, I've taken a couple and lost a couple, but no, I like that Q3 ish. That's like midsummer right now, at end of summer
Yeah,
Q3.
yeah.
So yeah, that lines up. I mean, that lines up with what happened in 2020. In 2020, I remember I was in a link trade from like $2 or $3. It ran all the way to $12. I actually accidentally sold. Well, not accidentally. I meant to sell it, but I sold it at like $8 or $9. I'm like, holy shit, I'm up 3x. Like, sold it.
Yeah.
That same day, it went from $9 to $12. Like, an extra X would have been nice, but
Yeah,
it lines up with
definitely.
the same thing. That was I believe August and September of 2020.
Yep.
But no, man,
Yeah.
really appreciate all the thoughts, and taking time to come on. I think a lot of the people have gotten a lot of good information, and just helped them kind of navigate the next upcoming move or next couple months, or at least giving them a plan. Like, hey, if we do go to the 30s, like, this is your opportunity to buy if you didn't when we were in the 20s.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I think that, we will be given some good opportunities, but it's just a matter of, you got to be ready for those opportunities. You can't run from them. You kind of have to accept them and kind of be ready to react for, you to be able to kind of be rewarded down the line.
Absolutely. Well, all right, man. I'm gonna end the live stream for today. For everybody that's here, thanks for coming out. Again, check out Castillo Trading on Twitter. I put his handle in my tweet for the live stream, so definitely go give him a follow. He's awesome. I really like I really like your charts. So again, really easy to read, real easy to follow. Very, like, you're not writing, hey, because of the XYZ ABC, we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's just you're not deciphering a message. It's very straightforward, and I think that's what a lot of people really need to see.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I appreciate you. I love your style too, man. I think we both really align on that, and it's always nice to find traders that are kind of within the same alignment of vision on the charts and that sort of thing. So, yeah, man, appreciate it.
Anytime, man. And